Hey YouTube, Jason Voodoo here. I'm stoked to announce that we have partnered with Wilco Off-Road. We're going to be removing our solo high clearance Hitchgate and replacing with the brand new Hitchgate X. Let's check it out. Everything that you see here is what we will be using to install the Wilco Hitchgate X kit today. Starting from the left here, we have our wheel stand plates, license plate brackets, wheel backing plate, 1-inch washer, the thread rod with wheel plate lock nuts already installed, Molle panel, the X arm with the wedge lock comes already installed with the tape. We're gonna leave this on for installation. We can remove it later if we want. The swing out wheel cone hub spinner, the wheel cone, our license plate lighting kit, the 33-inch spare, black Delrin washers with a pivot bolt with a 19-inch wrench, 19-inch socket, and a torque wrench that can go above 70 foot-pounds of torque. License plate bracket bolt washer nuts with a 4mm Allen key and a 11mm socket. We have our Molle panel bolts. These are for the top, these are for the bottom. These are gonna need a 17mm wrench, 17mm socket. We're also gonna need a 19mm long socket with a 10-inch extension. This is gonna be needed to tighten the bolt that's inside this hitch here. Lucas marine grease with an applicator brush, scissors, a tape measure, and a hitch locking pin. First things first, we're gonna remove our old Solo. Now we'll go ahead and clean up the inside of our hitch here to get ready for installation. I like to use Amsoil metal protector to clean up and protect the metal. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray this in here. We already have a little bit of a coating in it. And I'll just let that sit a little bit and then I'll wipe it out. Gonna take some of this marine grade grease and we're just gonna coat the inside here. Even though we coated the inside of the hitch, we're gonna go ahead and coat the outside of this as well, just to protect it, help it. None of this hurts. You don't need to put the grease on here. Just the powder coated metal. And whatever's on the outside of the hitch, we can also clean up after the fact. Now I'm gonna go ahead and loosen the wedge lock bolt a little bit so we can get this on the car a little easier. I'm gonna move that bolt about halfway through. Now with that loosened, you have a lot of movement. So you put the wedge block in there first, and then you slip the hitch the rest of the way in. And depending on how close you want it, there's 2 mounting holes. 1, 2. We're gonna place our pin in here just so we can get it set in the proper orientation. Badlands jack, we have that right there so that we can get this perfectly level. And I'll show you right now, that is level. We'll use our 19mm deep socket with a 10-inch extension on our 1/2-inch socket. And we are going to tighten the bolt inside the hitch here for the wedge lock. We will need to push this out of the way, so there will be some adjustment we'll need to do. From the inside of the vehicle, we have our wedge lock here. I'm gonna pull my pin and I'm gonna leave it halfway inserted so that this hole here doesn't move. Make sure that when you're torquing this down, this guy isn't moving. That should be perfectly centered. like this. That is why we leave that tape on, and you don't really need to take that tape off. You can leave that tape on. As the wedge lock bolt tightens, this base will draw into the receiver a few millimeters. So you need to compensate for this travel before tightening that bolt, or you're not going to be able to insert the safety pin afterwards. We're going to move it about 2 millimeters out from this hole. Make sure that your pin still pushes in. You want it to go all the way through. There we go. We'll need to tighten the inside bolt to 60 to 75 foot-pounds of torque. I'm gonna put mine right at about 68 foot-pounds. I'm gonna use a 19 millimeter socket with the 10-inch extension and my torque wrench here. Go ahead and get this torque down. Now we just need to make sure that our hitch lock still fits in here, and that pushes all the way through. You still might have some grease left over on your hitch. You can go ahead and just clean this off now. A reminder to you guys using torque wrenches, make sure that you loosen this and you twist this all the way back down to 0. If you do not do that and you let this thing sit, the spring inside will compress and then it won't actually hit the torque number that you're trying to hit. So make sure that when you are storing these, you're putting this thing all the way back down to 0 or even looser. If your hitch gate is installed correctly, there should be no movement in this arm. I'm wiggling it and we're not seeing it move up or down, left or right. Just the truck moves. Perfect. Time to install the swing out arm. We're gonna use the black Delrin washers, the pivot bolt with the 2 washers that are on it, and the marine grade grease. First things first, we're gonna put the grease around these portions here where the Delrin washers are gonna go. This is gonna help them stick. We do both the top and the bottoms. You don't need a crazy thick amount, you just need a nice thin layer. Come over to the swing out, and we're gonna do the same with the grease where the Delrin washers are gonna sit. So both sides of the Delrin washers will have grease on it. And this is gonna help the Delrin washer stick to the swing out when we're installing. Now we'll continue adding marine grade grease. We're gonna go on the inside of where the pivot bolt's gonna go. We're also gonna coat the flat part of the bolt here. You do not need to coat the threads. I'm gonna get ready to install this, so I'm gonna go ahead and put on my washer on the top here. I'm gonna place this right here. And grab your Delrin washers, and we're gonna place them on the bottom. See how it sticks there? And the top backside. I'm gonna have to hold this one on while I slide it into here. Bringing this over, go ahead and slide this in place, and we'll drop this on. You'll need to wiggle the bottom to get it. Swing it in. Lift up on this side to get that bolt to center in. Now that we have that centered in, go on and install our flat washer and our nylon lock nut. Tighten this up, and then we'll use the torque wrench to tighten it the rest of the way. Gotta torque this pivot bolt to 60 to 70 foot-pounds of torque. I'm gonna set my torque wrench to 65, just be right in the middle. This is needed so that the Delrin washers can settle. So this is gonna take about a couple weeks to settle in. You don't necessarily need to use the swing out, but it will help if you want to open and close it while you use it to run errands. It may take 2 hands to open and close the arm during those 2 weeks, but you should notice that it's gonna lighten up and then you'll be good to go. Now let's check to see how heavy this is to open. I'm gonna try one-handed. It actually opens up pretty easily one-handed and closes. My pin, I can lock that in. Take that out. Notice you have these two set points. So pick it up and it locks in just like that. Pick it up to unlock it, and then you can move it into your second one. And now it's locked at a 45-degree angle. I did want to highlight with the wedge lock bolt and the pivot bolt is I'm going to retorque these after about 25 miles. And then I will check them before every big trip. Failure to keep the pivot tightened to a spec will result in unwarranted damage. So you want to make sure that you are checking that. The pivot should be checked annually before rugged adventures and really scrutinized during use for any changes, including discolored or worn Delrin washers, the black washers that we installed there. And if you need more information on that, you can check Wilco's maintenance page on their website. We'll move on to installing the wheel items like the Molle Panel, the wheel plate, the wheel backing plate, and everything you see here will be used for this part of the install. The first items we're gonna do for install are gonna be the Molle Panel and the wheel plate, along with the bolts. And we're gonna loosely put these items on. If you wanna mar up any of your metal, you can put a little bit of that grease behind where the washers are gonna go. Now we'll go ahead and install our wheel plate. These wheel plates are reversible. I'm gonna mount mine like this. You can mount it like that if you have a larger tire, or you can use the larger plate, which will come up a little bit higher if you have smaller wheels. I'm gonna put it on like this. Carriage bolt goes in on this side. And then the Molle Panel, we're gonna install like this. Carriage bolt again, goes in through the front. Now, you may notice that I can move this left and right. It is so that we can get these matched up. If it's too far over, your holes aren't met. So, all the way to the left, gets my holes met up. These are the long bolts. They go into the top from the front to the back. The nuts sit in the back. Now that we have the Molle Panel and the wheel plate on, we'll go ahead and install the thread arm. There's some powder coating that is in the thread holes. So we're gonna grease this side just a tiny bit. The piece with the female side with the threads is gonna go away from the vehicle. So we're gonna grease this little part here. We're gonna leave this nut about 1.5 inches away from the end. So we'll go ahead and screw that in a little bit. And then we will screw this onto the vehicle. Now that we're on the truck, we're gonna take the grease side. I'm gonna put that on here. Insert. One thing that we noticed is these bolts, this rod, if you try to turn it, it is very difficult to turn, right? So what you can do is you gotta take 2 wrenches. You gotta put one on one of these here, one on the other. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna lock these together as best as you can. Once you do that, you now turn this until that is about 1/2 inch or 1.5 inches from the end. Now with that marked off, we know the diameter is about 16.5 inches. So from here to here, we want to make sure that's 16.5. We are about 1.25 inches off. We're at 17 3/4 to the halfway mark of this rod. So we need to move this up a bit. Get the wheel here. Now, as you can see, we're just about dead center on this. So we're gonna leave it right about there and then continue with adding our parts. Now just going in and fully tightening all of these nuts. Now those are set. Now we're gonna grab the wheel cone and the spinning wheel hub, and we're gonna place these on the vehicle. This is gonna go on first, this way into the wheel. Doesn't mar the surface of your wheel. It's nice soft plastic. And then we can put this on and spin this all the way on. further adjustments needed. We still have this threaded rod that's sticking out about 1.5 inches. I'm gonna measure this. So we wanna get this pushed inwards. There is a cap that's on the back here. I'll show you this little cap here. And you wanna make sure that that rod doesn't go through there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this wheel off. I'm gonna measure this first. And depending on that distance, that's how far I'm gonna push it in. Now we're gonna move this second nut backwards, about 1/4 inch. We'll need to use both wrenches, one to hold this one in place, the other to move this one back. Make sure that this nut's nice and snug. Forgot to hit record, but I did adjust this. I did mark on here where these were gonna go. About 2 3/4. I had to make the adjustments. So I measured and moved these already. I didn't push this out, which is great. Happy that didn't happen. So what we'll do now is just put the wheel back on and we'll make sure everything's copacetic. And this will go like that. Now we wanna see how far this is when the wheel is on here. Depending on your offset, I'm at a -10. I'll be at a -38 once I go to 35s. This nut and this plate's gonna need to be adjusted. So it's either needing to come out or it's gonna need to go in. So we're gonna mess around with that a little bit and see where it needs to be set. So you can see here that I probably have about 1 inch or so where that's gonna sit. So you can see right here where the tire's touching. It's also doing the same thing on this side. This plate, you can see, is pretty far and away from the wheel where the nut is currently. So we're gonna have to push this up and then move that nut back towards the wheel. If done properly, you should have 5 points of contact. 1 on the wheel support plate, 2 on the wheel cone, 3 and 4 on the swing out arms, and 5 on the wheel backing plate. Now, we do have 2 different plate options. We have a left mount and a right mount. Now, from my understanding, they work like this. So they come out in front, so you can see the entire plate. This one would mount like that, and it would block your pin. So your pin you would pull from the back like this. Now, which one do you guys think is cleaner? We were looking at this one first, so we'll go ahead and get this placed on, and we'll see how this goes. So the kit does come with 6 bolts, 6 nuts, 6 washers to get this mounted up. We're gonna use 2 in the back here, and then we'll use the others to mount the license plate. Bolt, we're just gonna go through the back here, and then we'll place a washer on both sides in the back. Now I'll take our license plate, put it into position, and we'll see how we like this. Now I don't think it's a crazy difference in location. I personally like the license plate a little bit closer to the tire. I think it looks cleaner. It hides the pull pin because I can pull it from back here. I don't need to be able to pull it from the front. So we're gonna use this other bracket that pushes the mount closer to the left towards the center of the truck. Have the license plate bracket on the vehicle. I need to look at installing the license plate light kit back at the vehicle. We'll now go ahead and get this mounted up. This will go on the back. Now we just got to tighten these bolts down, and then we got to feed these cables through. We're going to have to cut this one and then extend it so we can get it through the wire concealing hole here and then out through the one that's in the back here. So now the other fun part begins. We are going to use our 4-pin harness, and we are going to create a connection to the wires that are coming from the license plate light. And this will connect to our trailer harness there. This will require a little bit of electrical knowledge, but I'll walk you guys through this. First things first is I'm gonna remove this just so it's one long wire, and that's gonna pass through here and then through the other arm. I don't know if I'll have enough wire to do that, but it's only a 3-wire loom. So I do have some other harnesses that I can cut up and I can use if this isn't enough to pass through. Go ahead and take this apart. So I'm just gonna actually just pull these, and these should kind of just separate out of these little connectors. So now we have all of them out. We can connect these. To do your wiring, if we're gonna cut this, you're gonna need a solder seal wire connector. So this is gauge 26 to 24, it's white. Some needle nose pliers, wire cutters, heat gun, shrink tube, electrical tape, and something to help pass the wire through. I'm gonna use an old clothes hanger. You can use whatever works best for you. Once I have this wire connected, these two ends connected, I will tie the end of that wire to this using electrical tape. I'll feed it through this hole to this second one, and then I'll use my needle nose pliers to grab it and pull it through. To get started, I'm gonna trim up these wires here. They don't need to be this long when they're going through the solder connector. The great thing about those solder connectors is you just heat them up with a heat gun, melts the soldering metal, and then the wires come together and connect without any issue. Now to figure out which size shrink tube you need, we'll need to use 1/4-inch tubing. Now you can use marine grade tubing if you want. It does have an adhesive inside, and it does, you know, water seal it. Very good for you. So it's not a bad thing to use that. It is a lot harder to get apart if you screw it up. We'll need to take both ends of the wire, put them up against each other, and figure out how much tubing we need. So I like to go over about 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna cut my tubing, what is that, about 3.5 inches. And what we'll do is we'll put this tubing on the end of this wire, go over it, and we'll just slide it all the way on and out of the way. Now we could take our solder connectors and we can start connecting each color wire to each other. Make sure that solder connector in the middle melts. And now just use your fingers, kind of pinch it, and it'll start hardening up on you. Now I'll do the other two. So we're gonna take this and we're gonna slide it all the way up. So now use the heat gun, shrink this down, and now you got a clean wire. Now what we need to do is pass both of these wires through. Before I put these wires through here, I'm gonna put the grommet over this wire, and I'll feed that over the other two as well. And that's gonna go into here. The other one I can put in onto this wire after I pull it through. We had the wires pass through here. We're gonna run the wires to this hole, and we're gonna come out the hole that's on the other end here. Now what you can do is pop off this cover. Easy, just use your finger, and it comes right off. And then you can actually grab whatever's in there. All right, we got this reattached to the clothes hanger. Our grommets are in. Now we can run it through. There it is. Okay, we'll undo this, and then we'll pull the clothes hanger out. And then we want to get this to the hole. All right, and we're through. Now we're just gonna inset our grommets here. And the reason I'm using these rubber grommets is so that the wires don't get messed up on any of the metal. Those grommets are set. I'm gonna move the swinging out all the way. Running of the wires of the hitch is now complete. We still need to clean up the wolf box wire, run that all the way to the front, and then also get our trailer harness connected to the license plate light back here. But you can see that we have the shrink tube on these two wires here that are going into the bumper. And then we put 1/2 inch split sleeving here on these wires coming through, and then again on the back wire that's coming out of the swing out. For this install, it's not necessary to show you guys the running of the G900 cable, but I want to show you how to connect the trailer harness that I cut into the license plate lighting harness. This is something that you guys can do whether you have a 4Runner, Tacoma, any other truck. You might just need a different type of harness depending on the trailer harness that you have on your vehicle. In the supplemental instructions for the license plate lighting kit, it advises at the bottom here what wires go to what. So on the right, we have the wires for green, black, and red, which is the license plate lighting wires, and then the trailer harness, brown, white, green, and yellow wires. Our diagram shows that the tail is green on the license plate light, so we're going to connect that to the brown on the trailer harness. The black is going to be white on the trailer harness, and then the green and yellow are going to go to red. We'll go ahead and connect these wires now. Red is going to go with yellow and green, and I'm going to use a little electrical carrot because I want to test this first. I don't want to connect these and then not have this function right. And then black will go with white, and brown will go with green. Now that we have these connected, we'll connect our trailer harness. Whenever you're messing with wiring, always make sure before you use all of your fasteners and set it up so it's solid, you test it first. If you do not test it first and it does not work, you're gonna have to cut all of your solder wire connectors off and rewire everything. With the trailer harness connected, we can now test our license plate light and the brake light. What we can also check is to see if the turn signal will work. And it's pretty unique. So I have the left turn signal on. If I turn the right on, it should also do the same thing. To connect the wires, we're gonna need two 22 to 18 gauge solder connectors, and then one 18 to 16 gauge solder connector. We're gonna need this one because we have two wires coming from the trailer harness that are gonna go into a single wire of the license plate lighting harness. Again, red's gonna go to green and yellow. I already have the green and yellow situated, so now we'll go ahead and put the red into here. We do have our shrink tube already added onto here. We have it about 4 or 5 inches. That way it covers this cable and this cable. Now we can pull on the cable a little bit, make sure it doesn't move. So we're good on both sides here. Now we'll get the brown, which will be connected to the green wire. For this, again, we're gonna use our 22 to 18 gauge solder connector. Last wire we're gonna do is the ground wires, the white from the trailer harness to the black on the license plate light. Now we're gonna fit our shrink tube over top. This is the moment of truth to make sure that these fit over top. They fit before we put these all together, so hopefully it fits now, which it does. We'll go over this wire, and you can see here, the whole thing is now covered.
This is what your wiring should look like coming out of the hitch, coming underneath, and making it nice and clean, connecting to the 4-pin harness here. This is the only thing you need to worry about.
The install of the Wilco Hitchgate X is now complete. And as Wilco says, happy trails.